Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into the Hayden Coker Show live. We are back. We are even better than ever. We are in Stillwater, Oklahoma at the Memento, and I'm very happy to have everybody here tonight. Big show. Conference championships happening this weekend. You've got Jacksonville State taking on the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers tomorrow night at around 6 o'clock. That'll be a fun game to watch. Is Tyler Huff going to be playing? Believe he is going to be playing in that game. He's going to be healthy, so that'll be a fun game to watch, a fun game to depict as it unfolds. So we've got a lot to talk about. Last week, massive week, rivalry weekend, and as I kind of told you what was going to happen, But as you may think, me, Brian Jennings, and Cody Mealer all predicted that Auburn would beat Alabama, and let me just tell you, it didn't happen. And I said at the end of the broadcast, I was like, well, I'm going to have to flip my pick now so it doesn't happen. Well, it happened. Alabama won, and obviously we jinxed ourselves a little bit, but that's aside from the point. Fun show last week, incredible show. Thank you to everybody at Chick-fil-A in Pell City. This is the Hayden Coker Show presented to you by the Chick-fil-A in Pell City. So massive shout out to those guys over there. We have a massive show tonight, guys. I can't wait to get into it. One thing last week that struck me dead was Michigan beating Ohio State. I did not see that happening at all. This kind of goes to show that Ryan Day just cannot win a big game to save his life. He can't. And that's not something that I'm saying just because it's popular. I said it last year. I said it the year before. This has been a consistent theme in Ryan Day's coaching ability over the last few years, and it's getting kind of ridiculous. I know that a bunch of Ohio State fans, God knows they're fed up. The Michigan fans, they want him there. They want him there because you know what? Ohio State can't beat them whenever Ryan Day's the head coach. So it's very, very interesting to see where Ohio State is going in this direction. You have Ryan Day, who is in his fifth year. He's 1-4. Excuse me. He's 1-4 against the Michigan Wolverines so far, and the only year they beat the Michigan Wolverines, well, let me just tell you, it was against none other than the COVID year. So it was in the COVID year. Excuse me. So I think that's interesting there. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to Ryan Day and Ohio State's tenure, or Ryan Day and his tenure at Ohio State, because there's a lot going on over there, and a lot of it isn't necessarily the greatest, just under the greatest vibes in the world, because we all know that over the last few years, Ryan Day has not been great at Michigan. If he continues to go down this road, if he continues to go down the path of losing against Michigan year after year after year, then it's just not going to be pretty for Ohio State, or not necessarily Ohio State. Obviously, it's not going to be pretty for them, but Ryan Day, he'll be gone, and that's just a matter of the fact. I don't think he'll be gone after this year. I don't think that'll happen. What I do think is going to happen is if it continues, then it's going to be more of a discussion, because then you're not just talking about winning against Michigan. Then it's going to become the big games. He's terrible in big games. Against Penn State, yeah, he's beating them. Congratulations. You beaten Penn State against James Franklin, who's even worse of a coach than Ryan Day is. So it's interesting, but obviously it's not the most important thing to discuss right now. We've got a lot more going on. Jacob Eady says, imagine losing against Michigan again. I don't have to imagine it, but Ryan Day, he don't have to imagine it either. So it's interesting to see where he stands in that program. Marty Gaston says, what's up, brother? Hope everybody's doing well in the live chat. Thank you, everybody, for watching and tuning in this evening. It is currently 5:32 on this Saturday, on this Thursday, and we are live here from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Thank you for everybody tuning in. Let's take a minute and discuss the Iron Bowl last week. Not too much to talk about, but I do want to run it down real quick. The coaching from Hugh Freeze and the inability to use to utilize Jarquez Hunter in crunch time is absolutely absurd. And that's something that has to be talked about in the offseason, because Hugh Freeze has got to utilize – it's not going to be Jarquez Hunter anymore because he's a senior right now, but he's got to learn to utilize his key playmakers. It's not always going to be a game of quarterbacks, and that's something that he's got to realize and understand, because Auburn has not had a quarterback in the last few years. I'm thinking that with Deuce Knight coming in, you have Walker White, who's a redshirt freshman. Maybe he starts next year over Deuce Knight, but we will see. Deuce Knight, the 5-star that Auburn landed over Notre Dame, or he flipped from Notre Dame. So maybe, but if anything, Hugh Freeze has got to take away from all he has to do is look at the Iron Bowl. All he has to do is look at the Iron Bowl last week and understand that he didn't give Jarquez Hunter the ball enough. If you give Jarquez Hunter that ball 25 times, I think it's a lot different of a ball game. Now I get maybe Alabama stopping the run a little bit, but you've got to go back to it at some point. Just because you're down doesn't mean you abandon the run game at all. So it's going to be interesting to see what Hugh Freeze does over the offseason. Does he come back with that same mentality next year, or does he finally realize that he needs to utilize those star players on the offensive side of the football for anything to work? So will it happen? We'll see. Our next game, we're going to talk a little bit about Jacksonville State and the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. This game takes place tomorrow night in Jacksonville, Alabama at 6 o'clock. This will be a fun one. Me and Alana will be watching the game here at the apartment, and unfortunately, it's going to be house divided. She worked at Western Kentucky. Guess what? I'm a student at Jacksonville State, so it's going to be a little bit of a house divided, but it's going to be a fun game to watch regardless. Tyler Huff going to be playing in that game. Jacksonville State looking to avenge themselves a little bit from last week. Not the best performance. It wasn't a great performance at all. Offensively, it was terrible, quite frankly, and a lot of that had to do with the way that Western Kentucky kind of schemed their defense, specifically for Jacksonville State. They did a fantastic job. They really disrupted Huff. They disrupted Smothers whenever they needed. So I thought it was very interesting and very intriguing how they facilitated their defensive scheme last week to beat Jacksonville State. Because this week, if they do the same thing and Jacksonville State has not made adjustments, then it's going to be a little bit different of a ball game. I think that Western Kentucky might walk away with one. But this is being played in Jacksonville, Alabama. This is being played in Jacksonville. I'm going to take the Gamecocks. I think the Cox win tomorrow night. They beat the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, and they eventually, they're not going to make the playoffs. They will make a bowl game. So they're going to make a bowl game, but I don't think that obviously it won't be too big of a bowl game with too much magnitude. They have a chance to go 10-4 on the year, and that's a step up from last year. So if Jacksonville State continues the path that they're on, they're going to be a pretty elite program when it comes to the group of fives. So I really think that over the next few years, you're going to start to see this sort of shift. Now, is Jacksonville State still going to be in the Conference USA? We don't know, especially with the way things have gone over the last few years. You were in the Ohio Valley Conference, then you jumped to the ASUN Conference, then you jumped to the FBS ball, and guess what? Now, voice crack. And guess what? Now you're in Conference USA. You're in the FBS. So this is big boy ball. This is not Power 5, obviously, but you're in the group of 5, and obviously now it's time to kind of keep going. You kind of keep building yourself up, and then hopefully maybe you'll start to – maybe, I'm going to say that again, you'll start to really accumulate these good recruits and kind of establish yourself as one of the better group of 5 programs in America, because I'm not going to lie to you, I think they are. I think they're a top 10 group of 5 team right now. I wouldn't go as far as saying top 5, top 3, but I think they are a top 10 group of 5 team in America right now. Now, if you look at the way that things have gone over the last few years, obviously they're trending upward. They fired John Gross, and we all know and we love John Gross. But they move on. They move on to Rich Rod and Rich Rodriguez at the helm. He's been really good. Obviously, you start 0-3 on the year, and from going 0-3 to where you are now at 8-4, losing in the last week of the regular season is phenomenal. So you end the year obviously before Western Kentucky. You're on an 8-game win streak. Do you win that game? Obviously, you don't win that game, but it's still really interesting to see it's still really fun to see what Rich Rod has done over the last few years at this Jacksonville State program. So as we move on over the next few years, it'll be really interesting to see what actually happens with this Jacksonville State team and some of the other group of 5 teams as well. Moving on, we have Oregon. They are taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions. They take on the Penn State Nittany Lions tomorrow night. It's going to be taking place at 7 o'clock. That'll be a fun matchup. I think that Oregon is going to dominate in this game, though. I think that Oregon dominates, and let me tell you why. So up front, Oregon's very physical. I know what you're going to say. So what, Hayden? Penn State is too. Penn State can't move the ball. Penn State cannot move the ball. Nick Singleton has been pretty underwhelming this year. I think he's a good player. I just don't think that the way that offense has been run, it's just not working. I think that James Franklin has a lot to do with that. I don't think James Franklin is a good quarterback. I don't think that James Franklin is a good head coach at all. I say at all. I don't think he's a great head coach. I think he's very mediocre. And if you look at Penn State and put who else do we want to put at the head coach over there? You want to put – I wouldn't go as far as saying Hugh Freeze. I think Hugh Freeze is a little average. So say let's put Lane Kiffin. Let's put Lane Kiffin at Penn State right now. Penn State's in contention for a national title. They are. So I think that James Franklin is very, very, I wouldn't say overrated. Everybody's kind of figured him out. But I'd say he's very, very average. And the longer that Penn State decides to stick with him, now I get it. He's reeling in these 10-win seasons, but there's nothing to show for it. There's not a playoff win. There's not a playoff appearance. Obviously, there will be this year because guess what? It's a 12-team playoff. Everybody and their mama's getting in. Even the teams with 3 losses. Alabama's going to get in. Miami's probably going to get in. So actually, no, Miami's probably not going to get in. So it's very, very interesting. It's intriguing. And I'll say this. I don't like the way that the college football playoff is set up. I never thought that they should have expanded from 4 teams to 12 teams. I thought that 8 teams would have been the perfect medium, the happy medium. I did think that the playoffs should have expanded, but the way that they have expanded it to 12 teams just seems like it's a little too much. So I love it. I love that it's more football. I might get to go work one of these games as a volunteer, but I don't necessarily like the 12-team format. I would much rather prefer an 8-team format with 4 first-round buys, with 2 first-round buys in the first 4 teams they play. But what do I know? I don't know anything. So, but I would have preferred that. But with this game, it's very, very interesting the way that Dan Lanning runs this program. I really, really like the way that Dan Lanning has run this program so far. You've got Dylan Gabriel, who's been playing some pretty good ball this year. Obviously, he's not going to be in New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation, but he's still going to be a massive topic of conversation because when Oregon goes deep into the playoffs, they make that run, and Dylan Gabriel is one of the reasons for that. It's going to be, and everybody's going to be talking about it. So let me tell you a little bit about Chick-fil-A. If you're looking for an easy way to feed your friends and family this football season, well, let's check out the Chick-fil-A in Pell City, and they can cater your next gathering. You can choose from a variety of trays, including cookies. You have the chocolate chunk cookies, the Chick-fil-A nuggets, the mac and cheese, and chocolate fudge brownies. A perfect fit for a get-together of any size. Place an order through the Chick-fil-A app, online, or by calling ahead and pick it up at the Chick-fil-A in Pell City, or get it delivered directly to your door. Enjoy more of the game with your friends when you take cooking off of your plate. Availability and order requirements may vary. You can check with your local restaurants for details. That is just the way that Chick-fil-A rolls. Chick-fil-A is a phenomenal place, so you need to go down there to Chick-fil-A in Pell City. Obviously, I'm not in the state right now, but if I was, I'd be going down to the Chick-fil-A in Pell City to cater big conference championship weekend. That's what we're calling it around here. Now, Jan Qatar has done me great over the last few weeks, guys. If you follow my Facebook, you know that Monday morning I went down to Jan Qatar. I was first in line, and I got my tires rotated and balanced. I got my oil changed. Those guys will help you out any way that you need whenever it comes to oil changes, minor auto repairs. You need your tires rotated and balanced, your shocks, your struts, whatever you need in that department. Those guys have got you. You can call Kurt and the boys at 256-570-0777. That's 256-570-777. So phenomenal guys, phenomenal employees over there, phenomenal people. Kurt, massive shout out to him. We love Kurt over there. But guys, the way that conference championship has gone over the last few years, it is heavily dictated. The playoff. Now you've got this year where the playoff is. This game may not mean as much to some teams because you look at Georgia. Georgia loses, they're going to get in either way as a 3-loss team in the SEC. Texas loses, they're going to get in as an SEC team, as a 2-loss SEC team. They just are. But guys, the lack of importance kind of throws my mind for a loop. And when I say that, there's not teams that are going to be just begging to win this game. Clemson is. Other than that, there's not. SMU doesn't have to win to get in. Oregon doesn't have to win to get in. Penn State, they're not going to win, and they're still going to get in. So to me, it just seems so odd with the way that the setup is this year. Obviously, we know that the 12-team playoff is a thing, and that plays a massive role in it. But to me, it just seems a little weird. Does it not just seem a little bit weird? Boise State, they're going to have to win their conference to get in. People were talking about 2-loss UNLV getting in over Boise State if UNLV wins the Midwest Conference or the Mountain West Conference, So if that indeed does happen, then you're talking about a whole nother kerfuffle because you've got a 2-loss Group of 5 team. Do they deserve to be in? Well, you beat Boise State, and we were all talking about how Boise State's going to be in there by the end of the year. Now you kind of got to look at it from the same angle. So if UNLV beats Boise State on, or I guess Saturday night, or excuse me, tomorrow night, then you've got a whole new ball game. So they're going to be in there. Matthew Cherry says, "What's up? What's up, Matthew? Hope you're doing well." So I certainly think that we're in for a whole new ball game. We're in for a whole new ball game over the next few years because guess what? They've already had talks about expanding again. So if you expand to 16 teams, then it's just a whole nother ball game. It's a whole nother ball game. Even more teams that don't deserve to be in. I don't necessarily like it, but that's the way that college football is going, and it's unfortunate. But you can't really do anything about it. The SEC championship game is taking place this weekend. By the way, Oregon is going to blow out Penn State Saturday night. The SEC championship game takes place on Saturday evening at 3 o'clock, just like it always does. This is going to be a fun one. You have the Texas Longhorns and the Georgia Bulldogs. Texas a slight favorite in this one. It was 2.5 last time I had checked. And I think that Texas is in for a doozy. They're in for a doozy. I think both teams are in for a doozy. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a lower-scoring game. But I think that both offenses kind of catch on later in the game, and they kind of exchange blows there for a little bit. But obviously that's later in the game, so I think it'll be a little bit lower scoring. So it's going to be such a fun matchup. Matthew Cherry says, yeah, definitely they shouldn't expand. They need to leave it alone. Yeah, I think they should leave it alone. I think they should. I'm not going to say they should go back to 4 teams, but I don't think it should have been expanded to 12 in the first place. So, but yeah, Texas, the Longhorns, they've had a really good year. Quinn Ewers, ever since that injury, he has not looked the same. He's a really good player. He's a really good athlete. I say really good athlete. He's a really good quarterback. Does he get the job done for the Texas Longhorns on Saturday night? Well, let me just tell you, Carson Beck has folded under pressure in almost every moment this season. And although, like against in the Alabama game, he's come back. He's faced those affairs and he's come back and really kind of proved other people wrong. That's late in the game. That's early on in the season. Really, neither one of the teams have found their identity. Now you're late in the season. You can't let that kind of stuff happen. You have 3 picks going into the second half. You're not winning the SEC championship game. This is a much more improved and a whole lot better of an offense than Alabama's offense in Texas. So I certainly think that Georgia is going to have a hard time up front. I think that Georgia's going to have a hard time up front on the offensive side of the football. I think that Texas is going to get some pressure on Carson Beck, and that is eventually what's going to lead to some turnovers. And I think that Texas wins this game. Now, I think that Texas wins it outright, too. I'm going to go Texas by 10 points in this game. I'm going to go by the score of 27-17. Give me the Horns, and buddy, we might just see a third game. What is it, a threequel? Is that what they call it? Yeah, we might just see a threequel in the college football playoff this year. So it'll be fun to watch either way. So I'm going with the Texas Longhorns. I'm not going horns down like I did last week. I'm going horns up. But I think that Texas wins this matchup. Now, SMU and Clemson. Big matchup, big-time matchup. If SMU wants to be in the playoff, obviously I think they need to win the game. But if they lose this game, they aren't necessarily out. I wouldn't say they're necessarily out. You have one loss on the year. And if you lose to a pretty decent a pretty decent Clemson team, it kind of, I'm not going to say it boosts your resume, but it does help you out a little bit. Whereas you look at teams like Alabama, they have that one ranked win. One ranked win. That only ranked loss this year of their 3 losses, by the way, comes to none other than, would you like to take a guess? It was the Georgia Bulldogs. Not the Georgia Bulldogs. God almighty. Just slobbered everywhere. But yeah, so I think it's very interesting to see, like, if for instance, if Alabama would have won last week, won 3 weeks ago against Oklahoma, it massively improves their chances. But now, I don't necessarily know. That one ranked loss that you have is Tennessee. The other two unranked losses, well, for one, I'll go ahead and spit this one out. It's Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. So obviously we know that Vandy's not the same Vandy of the past few years, but Vandy's not a team you can lose to and expect to make the college football playoff against all these other teams who are deserving. I don't think Miami's deserving. But is Miami going to make it over Alabama? So I think it's interesting. It's interesting. We'll find out a lot more on Sunday. Whenever Selection Sunday comes, we'll have a lot more to talk about, a lot more to discuss. We'll probably go live next Thursday night. I haven't necessarily thought about that just quite yet. We might go live the following Thursday night. I'll let y'all guys know on the Facebook page. So, but yeah. Matthew Cherry chimes in and says Vandy, Dandy Vandy. They're not the same old Vandy anymore, are they? So, I thought Vandy was ranked when Alabama lost, so no, they weren't ranked yet. Matthew, they weren't ranked yet. They were ranked shortly after that game was played. Because I remember at the time Oklahoma State. I was at this game. Oklahoma State was playing West Virginia, and people were kind of saying that Alabama, because they had just beaten Georgia, they had a bye week. They come back. Are they going to come into this game a little hungover? And then it kind of happened. So they came in, they were a little bit hungover, and then the following week you had South Carolina, and what happened against South Carolina? South Carolina's a good team, though. South Carolina's a better team. You don't lose to South Carolina. It's a close game. Now you can't necessarily make the argument for South Carolina. I don't think you can make the argument for South Carolina at all. You lose to the two teams in front of you, Ole Miss and Alabama. So if Ole Miss and Alabama don't make the playoff, South Carolina is certainly not going to make the playoff. So that argument is kind of dead in the water. Of course, we all talk about the head-to-heads, and of course they mean a lot. And they mean a really good bit, especially when you're in South Carolina's situation as they are right now. So I think that is another topic of conversation for another time. We'll talk about it next week following Selection Sunday. We'll talk about it. But that's certainly something to think about, in my opinion. But yeah, so I talked a little bit about Texas. They win the game. Miami, are they gonna get in? I say Clemson wins, SMU wins. I think that SMU has the best chance to win tomorrow night in this game. Obviously, SMU's favored in this game. SMU's got a physical front. Clemson's got a physical front too, but I don't think that Clemson is as physical, or not as physical. Mind me, I don't think they are as elite or as dynamic on the offensive side of the football as SMU is. I think that Kevin Jennings is a phenomenal athlete. He's a phenomenal player. Brashad Smith, the running back for SMU's put up over 1,000 yards this year, 14 total touchdowns on the ground. So he's been phenomenal this year. He's been really, really nice. You have Kevin Jennings, who can really make some plays on his feet. He's not one of those guys who's just going to go out there and show his dual athlete ability, but he's going to go out there and he's going to do what he can to win the game. And when I say that, look at what he did a few weeks ago against Boston College. Scrambling around, running around. He did the right things, though. There was just one play against Boston College. He's almost sacked, rolls out of the pocket, kind of, I believe he almost or maybe not tripped, but got tripped up by a player and then delivered a dart. And it was for first down, but I mean, it wasn't like a 30-yard pass, just a 15-yard pass, but it just kind of shows the strength and ability that Kevin Jennings can offer you. So that's another one to talk about. But I think that SMU wins tonight. I'm going to ride the Pony Express all the way down to Charlotte, North Carolina, and watch SMU beat Clemson this Saturday. So, and what a story from SMU. You have over 40 years ago, the football program being absolutely nothing. They take away the football program. These guys are going out there. They're paying players, and it's very evident. They're giving these players cars. And now look where you're at. You're in the NIL era where all that stuff is legal now. And guess what? You're doing the same thing that some of these other elite programs are doing. Look at what Georgia's doing. Are they going to win the SEC championship game? Well, they've been playing some good ball recently. Are they going to? You look at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech just came in ready to play. I'm not gonna knock them at all. So that was phenomenal of them. But yeah. So I'll go with SMU in that one. You look at the Big 12. The Big 12 is a really interesting topic of discussion right now. Iowa State, they're in the Big 12 championship game against the Arizona State Sun Devils. Kenny Dillingham in his second year with the Sun Devils, 13-11 so far in his tenure with Arizona State. It's going to be a fun matchup. With the way that Kenny Dillingham has taken this Sun Devils team from last year to this year, you win 3 games last year. You win 2 games last year. You win 2 games last year. Now you come back this year, you win 10 games. You're 10-2 right now. All you have to do is win this Saturday and you're in. You win, you're in. Same thing with Iowa State. You win, you're in. I don't necessarily think that Iowa State's going to win this game. I think that Cam Scatterbo has been phenomenal this year. He's been amazing on the ground. He's very physical. He's very dynamic. He's very dynamic. He's not just one of those guys that can just run over you, but he's very elusive as well. So I certainly think that Arizona State's going to get the win tomorrow night in Jerry World. I'm going to go with Arizona State over Iowa State. Big time matchup, but I'm going to go with the Arizona State Sun Devils in that game. And where's that going to leave us? With the top 5 teams. And by the way, Boise State and UNLV are playing. I'm going to go with UNLV. I think that UNLV is going to upset Boise State tomorrow night. I think that they kind of shut down Ashton Genty. And UNLV takes that game. Hodge Malik Williams, quarterback for UNLV. He kind of stepped in earlier on in the season whenever you had Matt Sluka say he was sitting out and transferring due to NIL not being given to him as promised. So Hodge Malik Williams, I'm going to go ahead and give you a salute. But him alone is why I think that UNLV is going to beat Boise State tomorrow night. Now, I know I said a little bit about UNLV's defense stepping up, but the way that Hodge Malik Williams has been playing this year, with the way that he's accurate, he's not just one of those guys that he kind of goes out there, he overthrows it. He's not your average quarterback that plays at a group of five. You know, when the stage gets big, he kind of crumbles. This isn't your average quarterback. Hodge Malik Williams is very, very good, and I expect for Malik Williams to be very good tomorrow night, or excuse me, not tomorrow night, or maybe it is tomorrow night. Yeah, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. So I expect for UNLV to win tomorrow night. I expect for them to make a push for the final playoff spot at number 12. Are they going to get in over a team like Alabama? We'll see. It's going to be interesting to find that out, and we'll talk about that a little bit more next week. So for now, top four. We'll go. I'm going to name 5 teams for you. I'm going to name the Power Four, and then I'm going to name the Mountain West champion. So I'm going to go Auburn. What? Auburn. I'm going to go Texas in the SEC because I think Texas beats Georgia tomorrow night. I'm going to go SMU. I think the SMU beats Clemson. I think they beat them. I'm not going to say handily, but I think they run away with it in the second half. I'm going to go Oregon. I think that Oregon puts a beat down on Penn State. I don't think Penn State's good. And then I'm going to go with Arizona State over Iowa State. And who's that 5th Mountain West team? It's the UNLV Rebels. So is UNLV going to get in? That is a big question right now. We'll talk about it a little bit more next week. But first, let me tell you a little bit about the app and how you can scan the app. You can scan the app at Chick-fil-A. You can get all your points that you need. Hey, everyone, making a decision on the go can be difficult. But if you want to know what to eat, and if you're making that decision, it's a little bit hard. Well, check again, guys. The Chick-fil-A in Pell City, it helps you save time with easy-to-order options on the Chick-fil-A Plus app. Plus, with every qualifying purchase, you'll receive points toward rewards. The Chick-fil-A food we all enjoy and love, just tap away. Download the Chick-fil-A app and order your favorites today in participating areas of the state of Alabama. Open your Chick-fil-A app when Auburn or Alabama. This doesn't really apply this weekend, but always a choice for next year. You can open up the app, and if Auburn or Alabama scores a touchdown from the red zone at home, you will receive a free treat from our Chick-fil-A Iron Bowl giveaway. So you can always count on Chick-fil-A to get whatever you need, whether it's your food, the order accuracy. That's a big thing that they rely on there. They take a bunch of pride in that. So go down to the Chick-fil-A in Pell City today and get whatever you want, whether it's a tray for tomorrow. Then you got you got some of the group of 5 teams playing in their conference championship games. But Saturday's the big boys. Matthew Cherry chimes in and says, Hayden Coker, the only bowl game Auburn football is going to play in is the Toilet Bowl. Well, Matthew, I don't guess you're wrong because they're not going to be going one. So I guess you got a point. You're right. But J&K Tire has helped me tremendously this year with my vehicle, whether it's been getting my tires rotated, whether it's been my oil change, my minor auto repairs. Guys, I know for a fact that my check engine light has been on a lot, and those guys don't necessarily help with that. But I talked to Kurt, and he was like, we don't necessarily help with that, but here's what we can do for you. We can look at your minor auto repairs. We can look at your shocks. We can look at your struts. And, guys, they can get anything that you need when it comes to the minor auto repairs and the oil changes and all that jazz, and the maintenance. Those guys can get you going. So go down to J&K Tire in Steele, Alabama. You can call Kurt and the boys at 256-570-0777. That's 256-570-0777. So massive weekend upon us. I hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend watching the game. We've got a bunch to talk about on Monday, on Sunday, whenever we're going to be talking about it. Plans are to go live next Thursday. You can follow me on Facebook at Hayden Coker, my YouTube HCS Media. You can follow me on Twitter at Hayden J. Coker. Kevin Moore says, "What's up, Booner Sooner?" LOL, that was for Alana. But yeah, that's Kevin Moore. Kevin, I'm gonna be sure to tell her, and you better hope that she's not coming down to Alabama anytime soon because she'll get on you for saying Boomer Sooner. But guys, thank you so much for watching, Kevin. I hate you missed it just there toward the end, but thank you everybody for tuning in. Go Pokes, as always. You got a bunch of good basketball going on, so you can watch some basketball. Oklahoma State basketball, if you really want to watch some basketball. But yeah, guys, I appreciate it. Y'all have a phenomenal